Hi Potomac Beaders, I'm Allie and I am super excited to introduce a new video for you today from the lovely Melissa from our customer service team. She's been dabbling in wire and she's about to show you exactly what you're going to make. Remember, if you need any materials, check out the links below in the description to shop with us online.
The first thing that we're going to do is make our U-shaped design. This U-shaped design, though we're using a pear drop in this project, is the same throughout these projects that you also see on the side here where we've used tassels. So you can use your crystals, you can use a tassel, whatever fits your style or what you might have on hand. So what I've done here is I've measured a 6-inch piece of 20 gauge Potomax wire. Now the nice thing about the Potomax wire is it does come with this nice little wire guard that wraps around to keep your wire secure, but it does make a great form. If you don't have the Potomax wire guard, you can use any type of round object that fits the size that you are wanting to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch the wire and the form together, and I'm just going to wrap up around the sides. So you'll see one wrap there. We'll go to the other side and do the same. Now you will notice you have some wire left over, but don't worry. We will either use that or cut that off. But this is our U-shaped design that's going to start the project. Now that we have our U-shaped design made, we're going to take and put our first bead onto that U-shape. Today I have chosen to use a 6mm Potomac Pearl in Almond Satin. So you're just going to take that bead and you're just going to slide it down on to the middle of that U. And don't worry if it gives you a little bit of fit. Sometimes the beads with the coatings and the fact that we're trying to get the bead around a curve, sometimes it wants to give you a little bit of a hassle there. But once we've got it on, we just put it right directly in the center and we can set this piece aside. Now that we have that piece completed, for that step, we're going to take a 26 gauge Potomax wire and we're going to feed 3 11-0 seed beads. This is going to start our pear drop portion of this pendant. So you're going to feed your 3 seed beads on to the bottom and then drop them down towards the center. The best way to do that, I find, is to match up your ends of your 26 gauge wire. You're going to kind of fold in, and then that way your ends match up and you can see that the seed beads are down at the bottom. Once that happens, you can just feed those 2 ends straight up through your pear drop crystal, and you can kind of spread them out, and then those 11-0s will tuck up nicely underneath there, making that little design. Now that we have those put together, we're going to take and put 3 seed beads on either side. So you can separate your wire at this time, and we're going to put 3 seed beads on each side of the wire. And now that we've repeated the same process on the opposite side, you'll see that you have the 2 wires sticking out with 3 of the 11-0s on each side. Now it's time for us to combine the 2 pieces of wire together. What makes this easy is if you hold it up, because sometimes those seed beads want to fall off, if you kind of line up where you want your pearl or your tassel, whatever you may be using for this project, you can line that up where you want it to be and then just kind of fold the ends over on each side, because we're going to wrap around the pearl, but that just prevents your seed beads from falling off while you work with one side. So you don't have to waste time restringing your seed beads. But don't worry, if it happens to the best of us. So what we're going to do is I'm going to wrap this 4 times around the 20 gauge wire. So my 26 is being wrapped 4 times around my 20 gauge wire. And as you can see, there is some space between my wraps. Don't worry, this gets better as you work with it, but you can just take your flat nose pliers and you can just, or needle nose, and you can push these together and it makes a perfect little coil there. And now we can move to the other side. Now that we have our wire wrapped on both sides, we're going to add our next 6mm pearl to each side. Just going to want to slide that 6mm pearl down all the way until it touches that coil that you just made. I said, sometimes it's tricky getting these onto the wire because each hole is just a little bit different. Just work with it and it should slide down. Sometimes I'll just use my pliers to grip as I pull that down. And if your wire comes out of place, no big deal. We can always reshape that back into place. Now that our pearl is down, with these you'll see that with each coil I cut, but as a beginner wire worker, one of the easiest things to do is just come right over that bead and then wrap around. So you can place your finger on top of the bead with the wire, and then you can wrap 4 times again. It just kind of secures that bead there so it doesn't slide around on you as you're wrapping. Like I said, if your coils aren't really tight, no big deal. We can take these needle nose pliers and just push it together, making it nice and tight. We're going to repeat that step on the opposite side. And now that we've repeated on the opposite side, we're going to go ahead and feed 2 more of those 6mm pearls onto either side. Just lower that down. So we've repeated the same process here again. Like I said, sometimes it's a little tricky with the wire because they just don't want to curve when you go down. So just a little pull and we can put that wire back into shape. Hold our wire to our bead and then wrap around 4 times. So you should be coming to the end of that 8-inch wire. Take our needle nose, push the coil down nice and tight, and then repeat that on the opposite side. So we'll go ahead and put this one on. I didn't leave much wire here at the end, so if you are a beginner with the wire working, you can always cut just a little bit bigger of a piece to have more on the ends to work with, because the more you have to work with, the easier it is to wrap those around. So now I have a project that should look like this. Now we're at this point, we're going to snip off this wire here with our wire cutters. So the best way to do that is we're going to find the flush end, and we're going to get as close to that wire as we can, that 20 gauge, and then snip off the 26 on either side. Now that we have it, and we can just press our ends in. And now we're ready to add our last set of pearls. Now for these projects I use 5, but for this one I'm going to go ahead and use 6 just to vary it a little bit. So just slide that down. Now that we have the main section of our necklace created, or our pendant created, we're going to add a little pizzazz here to the top. So in these 2 examples up top here, I've done something different with each of them. And that's a nice part about it. You can be as creative as you want to be, or use what you have on hand and make it any way that you want. So with this one, I've used some Potomac's metal bricks to go across the top there. And with this one, I've used 11 O's and a crystal. So that's what I'm going to do for this particular project. I'm going to kind of try to mimic this bottom section here that we did with the pear drop. We're going to go back up here to the top. We're going to feed 3 of our 11 O's onto 26 gauge wire. Now this piece I've cut is 6 inches. Same concept as the bottom. We're going to fold it in half, find our center, and let our seed beads fall to the bottom there. For this, I have chosen to use a PC Rondelle, or Potomac Crystal Rondelle, in a 2x3mm, which with the 26 gauge, it still slides on very nicely, so you'll just slide that all the way to the bottom. Now, with the wire and the smaller beads with the rondelles, sometimes you just need a little extra help. So just take your needle nose pliers, hold the ends of that, and then just secure that rondelle down towards the bottom. And we'll have the same version of our pear drop, but just a little more with our rondelles. Now that we have that, we are going to feed our seed beads onto either side. So we'll just string our beads on to each side of that 26 gauge wire. And now we have our seed beads fed onto both sides of that 26 gauge wire. Now, depending on how big your U is, will be how many seed beads you use to get that across the width of that U. For this one in particular, it's 20 beads on each side of that wire. And now that we have our beads there, we're going to fit them onto our U. Now what I do is I just judge with that. So you can see that like maybe 20 seed beads is a little too much there. So I'm going to take maybe 3 off. So I'll have like about 17 beads on each side at this point. And that looks about right. And so what we'll do is we will continue the wrap that we did below, but we're going to wrap around that last pearl that's on our project. So go ahead, and if you want to fold one side over while you wrap the other side, that'll just secure it so that your beads do not come flying off. So we're going to wrap 4 times just like we did. So we're going the wrong way. Alright, so for this project, I was going the wrong way, but I have chosen to go underneath. So I'm just going to slide my project to the side here, and I'm just going to wrap down. Get the wire out of the way so you can see it. We're going to wrap 4 times down the project instead of up like we did before. And then we can just take our wire there. And for this, since we're coming down, you don't even need your needle nose pliers. You can just push that right down to the project and then wrap on the other side. Now that we have both sides of our wire wrapped securely around, going downwards towards the pearl, you'll see that we have our little design here. Now the great part about this is a personal preference, but you can make it straight across and leave it as it is. Or if you see here, I've taken and I've bumped it up just a little bit. It almost reminds me with the tassels of like a little dress or something like that, make it a little fancy. So to do that, all I did was just take my finger and I just kind of bumped it up just like that. And we can do that on the other side. Just a little bump up to make that little, and you can shape it once you see it, make it look just how you want it to. So you'll have like a little design just like that. Just adds a little bit of flair to something that was straight. Now that we have how we want our top piece to go, you can clip those ends off using your wire cutters. Remember, flush against the wire on either side, and then just use your wire, your needle nose, just to flatten those little pieces out. Okay, now that we have that, we can finish off our project. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to take our needle nose pliers and we're going to wrap in like we have done here. Now to do that, I'm actually going to cut this shorter here. If you wanted to create like a little spiral look, you could spiral the whole thing with your needle nose pliers, but I'm going to cut the ends of those off, leaving about 1/2 inch on either side with my wire cutters. And then all you're going to do is take your round nose pliers. You're going to, depending how big you want that loop to be, as you can see, this loop is a little smaller and this loop is a little larger. But all you're going to do is take your needle nose plier or your round nose pliers. You're going to find the size of the loop that you want, put your wire in, and you can see that it's flush, and we're just going to twist around. And you can just kind of twist to make that just how you like it. And you can see there that we've made our loop, and you can secure that in. And then we'll do the other side. And now you can add this nice string to it or a little piece of wire. I actually made one where I made a longer necklace and I wear it with a real casual dress, so it looks real nice.
Thanks again so much to the amazing Melissa. If you want to see more, make sure to comment below, give her some amazing thumbs up and feedback. It's great when we get our Potomac bead family in on the video production and the tutorials as well. So thanks again to Melissa. Happy beading, everyone, and enjoy the next video.